Hello and welcome to JRL Learning Hub, a channel dedicated to help CAD users, engineers and students. And in this video I'm going to show you how to hatch an object using the predefined pattern method, user defined, gradient and solid. So let's get started. Okay, so let's start with the predefined pattern. The hatch toolbar can be found here. So if we click on hatch, and you'll notice straight away that the standard ribbon has now been replaced by the setup for hatching ribbon. So now the first thing that we want to do is go over to this window here, click on it, and there are the four options that we're going to look at today. So we go ahead and click on pattern. You then need to decide what type of pattern you want. So if we click on this little button, it shows us predefined patterns, and there's a slide bar. If we click it, we can drag it down. You can see that there are quite a few different hatch patterns that we can pick from. So we'll go ahead and pick one. Let's go for this one. Now we just go over to the object that we want to hatch. So if I go over this box, before I click, it shows me a preview of what the hatch will look like. Let's now click inside. It's placed it. It looks nothing like the hatch pattern that I picked. That's because it's too big. But we can control the size of the hatch pattern by going up to the scale option. So this is where we can set the scale. If I select that and type in a smaller number to bring the size down, we type in 0.1. I'd like it a bit smaller than that, so if we change that again, perhaps try 0.05, and that's pretty good. We can change the angle as well, so if we go into this box, we can type in, if I type in 45, enter, it will just reorientate the hatch pattern. So let's take that back to 0, and when we're happy with it, all we need to do now is just close the hatch creation, and that's done. Okay, so let's move over to the user defined option. So if we click on hatch, we come up to this window here, click on it, and we select user defined. This allows me to produce a very basic hatch pattern. And this type of hatching are just straight lines with a distance between them, which you can set the angle as well. So if we go over to the box and we click inside, we can see that it's really dense. And if I zoomed in, you'd probably start to see gaps. But if we change the spacing, let's try 3, enter, you can see that the spacing starts to get further apart. If we wanted it at 45 degrees, we can click inside there and type in 45 and enter, and the spacing and the angle are pretty much set. When you're happy with it, just click on close. Okay, so let's look at the gradient option. So we click on hatch, we come up to the window, click on it and select gradient. If we go over to the box we want to hatch, click inside, and we can decide what type of gradient that we want. If we click on this and scroll to the area where the gradients are, the gradient option just changes shading or intensity from one side to the other, and you can also incorporate different colors as well. So let's pick one. Let's go for that one, and we can then change the angle if we want to. I'm not going to for this demonstration, but just to show you that the gradient option looks like this. If you want to change it, you can just pick whichever gradient type that you want. When you're happy with it, just click on close. And finally, we've got the solid option. So if I click on hatch, we go up to this window and select solid. What this one does is just solid fillet. And again, you can pick whatever color you want, but this option's good for solid filling objects. And then close. Okay, so before we move on to editing hatch patterns, I'd just like to show you another method of selecting the objects. So if we just delete this pattern there, we go up to Hatch. So instead of clicking points, which is the way we did it last time, if we go Select, click on that, we could just select the object and it does the same thing. And then you can go ahead and obviously set up your hatch and then close. So let's say that we want to edit one of those hatch patterns. The easiest way to do it will be to go over the pattern and double click with the left hand mouse button, and this brings up the ribbon that we use for creating the hatch patterns. And all you do now is just go in and decide what you want to do to edit the hatch pattern. So if we change the spacing between the lines, type in 5 and the spacings go further out. You can also do it on this box. This dialog box comes up when you double click, so you can do some sort of minor changes there as well. When you're happy, close the editor. And the same with the gradient, all of them in fact. Double click and you can make some changes to your new specification and then close. A useful option when you're hatching an object is the ability to apply associative hatching. And what this means is when you hatch an object and then you change that object, because it's associative hatching, then it will update and redefine itself within that object so that you haven't got to rehatch it. So if I now click on hatch, by default associative hatching is always selected. You can unselect it if you want to, but let's have it associative. If I now click inside between the two objects, apply the hatching and close, you can see that hatching has been produced between the two objects. It hasn't actually hatched inside the circle. If I now move the circle within that rectangle, so I'll click on move, I'll select the circle, enter, pick a base point, and I move it, say, just over there. Once I've moved it, the hatching has redefined itself inside between the two objects, and that's really useful. Saves a lot of time not having to redo the hatch. Okay, one final thing. If the object that you want to hatch is open-ended, so for example in this bottom left hand corner we've got a gap, it's not closed, then AutoCAD just will not hatch it and it will throw up an error message. So you need to ensure that the object that you're going to hatch is completely closed. And I'm going to show you what happens when the object is open-ended like this. So if we click on hatch and I click inside the object, it tells me that it can't do it because it can't define a closed boundary. So if we close that and we exit, if I now go into fillet, set my radius to 0 and then click on the two lines, go back into hatch, click inside, it will now hatch it. So if that ever happens, you get that message, then go around all the corners and just make sure that everything's closed and everything should be okay. Okay, so that's the basics of hatching. There are several options within hatching that you could explore yourself, get yourself familiar with, but for now we've completed the basics. If you have any questions regarding hatching, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please click on the like button and subscribe for more videos. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.